There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you realize that most of what you say is not truly heard. Not in the way that matters. You speak and the words float out, but they don't land. They don't change anything. You see it in the glazed eyes across the table, the polite nods, the distracted glances at phones. You feel it in the silence that follows, in the way your words evaporate, leaving no trace. And in that moment, a question rises. What does it take to be truly heard? To be trusted, not just tolerated? To have your words become more than noise in a world already drowning in it? We live in an age of endless talking. Social feeds, meetings, group chats, podcasts, everyone is speaking, but so few are truly connecting. We're surrounded by voices, yet starved for understanding. We crave someone who doesn't just talk at us, but speaks to us. Someone who makes us feel seen, not just scanned. Someone who in a single conversation can make us feel like we matter. That's the rarest kind of influence, and it's the only kind that lasts. Think of the people you trust most, the ones whose words you remember long after the conversation ends. Maybe it's a mentor, a parent, a friend, a leader. What did they do differently? It wasn't their vocabulary, it wasn't their title, it was the way they made you feel, the way they listened, not just to your words but to your heart. The way they spoke, not to impress, but to understand. The way they made you feel, safe enough to be honest, vulnerable, real. That's the power of trust. And it's built, not demanded. Abraham Lincoln understood this. In the darkest days of the Civil War, when the nation was fracturing and hope was thin, Lincoln would walk the halls of the White House, late into the night, listening to the fears and frustrations of ordinary people. He didn't just issue orders from above. He sat with soldiers, clerks, even strangers, and listened. He let them speak their pain, their doubts, their dreams. And when he spoke, it was with a gravity that came from understanding, not authority. People followed him, not because he was president, but because he made them feel heard. He spoke so they trusted him, not just heard him. But how do you do that? How do you become the kind of person whose words carry weight, whose presence inspires trust, whose influence is felt long after you leave the room? It starts with empathy, not the soft, sentimental kind, but the fierce, courageous act of stepping into another person's world, of seeing through their eyes, feeling with their heart, thinking with their mind. Empathy is not weakness. It's the foundation of all real influence. Because people don't trust you for your answers. They trust you for your understanding. Imagine you're in a heated meeting. Tensions are high, voices are raised. Everyone is fighting to be heard. Most people double down, talk louder, try to win the argument. But the person who changes the room is the one who listens, who asks, "Help me understand what you're feeling," who reflects back what they hear, not to parrot, but to validate. Suddenly, the temperature drops. Defenses lower. People feel safe enough to be honest. That's when real solutions emerge. That's when trust is built. Dale Carnegie wrote, "You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years, by trying to get other people interested in you." It's not about being interesting. It's about being interested. When you make someone feel important, you become important to them. When you make someone feel understood, you become unforgettable. But empathy is not just about listening. It's about responding in a way that honors what you've heard. It's about speaking to the real need beneath the words. When someone shares a fear, don't dismiss it. Acknowledge it. When someone expresses a hope, don't minimize it. Celebrate it. When someone makes a mistake, don't shame them. Help them grow. Every conversation is a chance to build or break trust. Every word is a brick in the foundation of your influence. Think of Eleanor Roosevelt, who spent her life championing the voiceless. She once said, "To handle yourself, use your head. To handle others, use your heart." She understood that leadership is not about commanding attention, but about earning trust. She visited coal miners, factory workers, refugees, people the world ignored. She listened to their stories, carried their burdens, and spoke for them when they could not. Her influence was not in her speeches, but in her presence. She made people feel that their lives mattered, and in return, they trusted her with their hopes. Trust is not built in grand gestures. It's built in the small moments. When you remember someone's name, when you ask about their family, when you notice their struggle, when you show up when it matters. It's built in the way you look someone in the eye, the way you put your phone away, the way you give your full attention. In a world of distraction, attention is the rarest gift, and it's the first step to trust. But trust is fragile. It can be shattered in a moment of carelessness, a thoughtless word, a broken promise. That's why it requires vigilance. It requires humility, the willingness to admit when you're wrong, to apologize when you've hurt someone, to repair what's been broken. It requires consistency, the discipline to show up, again and again, even when it's inconvenient. It requires courage, the strength to speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Trust is not given, it's earned, every day, and yet the rewards are immeasurable. When people trust you, they open up, they share their real selves, their fears, their dreams, their doubts. They invite you into their world. They listen to your words, not because they have to, but because they want to. Your influence grows, not by force, but by invitation. You become the person people turn to in crisis, the leader people follow in uncertainty, the friend people confide in when they have nowhere else to go. But it all begins with a choice. The choice to speak so people trust you, not just hear you. The choice to put understanding above being understood. The choice to make every conversation a safe place for honesty, vulnerability, and growth. The choice to lead with empathy, to listen with your heart, to speak with your soul. Because in the end, people won't remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember the trust you built, the safety you created, the hope you inspired. And that is the kind of influence that changes lives. There is a silent power in empathy, a force that moves beneath the surface of every conversation, every relationship, every moment of human connection. Empathy is not a soft skill. It is the bedrock of trust, the engine of influence, the secret language that makes people feel safe in your presence. In a world obsessed with being right, empathy is the rarest form of strength. Picture yourself at a crowded dinner table. Laughter, stories, opinions flying back and forth. Most people are waiting for their turn to speak, rehearsing their next point, eager to be heard. But the person who changes the atmosphere is the one who leans in, who listens with their whole being, who makes the speaker feel like the only person in the room. That's empathy in action. It's not about agreeing with everything you hear. It's about honoring the experience of another human being. It's about saying, without words, you matter. Your feelings are valid. I see you. Dale Carnegie understood this better than anyone. He wrote, "If there is any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle, as well as from your own." This is not just a technique, it's a way of being. It's the difference between transactional relationships and transformational ones. When you practice empathy, you stop trying to win arguments and start trying to win hearts. Think of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who led America through the Great Depression and World War II. He was famous for his fireside chats, radio broadcasts where he spoke directly to the American people, not as a distant leader, but as a neighbor, a friend. He addressed their fears, acknowledged their pain, and offered hope. He didn't sugarcoat reality, but he made people feel understood. In the darkest times, his empathy became a lifeline. People trusted him because he spoke to their struggles, not above them. Empathy is not passive. It's an active choice, a decision to step outside your own perspective and enter someone else's world. It's the courage to ask, what is it like to be you right now? It's the humility to admit that you don't have all the answers, that you might be wrong, that someone else's experience is just as real as your own. Empathy is the bridge that turns strangers into allies, adversaries into partners, acquaintances into friends. But empathy is not always easy. It requires patience, especially when you disagree. It requires curiosity, especially when you don't understand. It requires vulnerability, especially when you're tempted to judge. Empathy asks you to put down your armor, to listen without defending, to care without controlling. It asks you to be present, to give your full attention, to let go of the need to fix or advise or rescue. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply listen and say, I hear you. I'm with you. In the workplace, empathy transforms teams. It turns competition into collaboration, suspicion into trust, silence into innovation. When leaders practice empathy, people feel safe to speak up, to share ideas, to admit mistakes. They know they won't be punished for being human. They know their voice matters. And when people feel valued, they give their best. In families, empathy heals wounds. It turns conflict into connection, resentment into forgiveness, distance into closeness. When you listen to your child's fears, your partner's frustrations, your parents' regrets, you create a space where love can grow. You show them that they are not alone, that their feelings are not a burden, that their story matters. Empathy is not about fixing people. It's about walking with them. It's about saying, I may not have all the answers, but I'm here for you. It's about holding space for someone's pain without rushing to erase it. It's about celebrating someone's joy without making it about you. Empathy is the art of being fully present, of giving the gift of your attention, your understanding, your care. And in that presence, something miraculous happens. Walls come down, hearts open, trust is born. People begin to share their real selves, their hopes, their fears, their dreams. They invite you into their world, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. That is the foundation of real influence. That is the power of empathy in action. There is a kind of listening that goes beyond hearing words. A listening that feels like shelter in a storm. A rare pause in a world that never stops talking. Most people listen to reply. Few listen to understand. Fewer still listen so deeply that the other person feels changed by being heard. But it is in these small, almost invisible moments of true listening that trust is born and relationships are transformed. Imagine a young Theodore Roosevelt, not yet the president, but a boy struggling with asthma and self-doubt. His father, Theodore Sr., would sit by his bedside night after night, listening to his fears, his wild dreams, his questions about the world. He didn't dismiss them or rush to solve them. He listened with patience, with presence, with a love that said, "You matter to me." That listening became the foundation of Roosevelt's courage, his resilience, his belief that he could face any challenge. It was not the speeches or the lessons that shaped him. It was the quiet, steady power of being truly heard. In every relationship, there are moments when someone needs you to listen, not to fix, not to judge, not to advise, but simply to be there, to hold space for their story, their pain, their hope. When you listen like this, you give a gift more valuable than advice or solutions. You give the gift of validation. You say, your experience is real. Your feelings are safe with me. You are not alone. Listening is not a passive act. It is a discipline, a choice, a form of respect. It means putting away your phone, turning off the noise in your mind, and giving someone your full attention. It means noticing the tremor in their voice, the hesitation in their words, the story behind the story. It means asking questions that invite them to go deeper, to share more, to trust you with their truth. Dale Carnegie wrote, "Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves." But this is not about flattery or manipulation. It's about creating a space where people feel safe enough to be real. When you listen without agenda, without judgment, without interruption, you become a mirror in which others can see themselves more clearly. You help them find their own answers, their own strength, their own wisdom. Think of the last time someone truly listened to you, not just nodded along, but really listened. How did it feel? Did you feel lighter, braver, more understood? Did you find yourself opening up, sharing things you hadn't planned to share? That is the power of listening. It unlocks doors that force can never open. It builds bridges that words alone cannot build. In conflict, listening is the first step to resolution. When tempers flare and voices rise, the instinct is to defend, to argue, to prove your point. But the person who listens, who says, "Help me understand what you're feeling," changes the entire dynamic. Defenses lower. The need to attack fades. People feel respected, and respect is the soil in which trust grows. In leadership, listening is the mark of greatness. John D. Rockefeller, one of the most powerful men of his era, was known for his ability to listen. He would sit quietly in meetings, letting others speak, asking thoughtful questions, drawing out the best in his team. He understood that people want to feel heard, not managed. That when you listen, you earn loyalty that money can't buy. Listening is also the antidote to loneliness. In a world where everyone is broadcasting, few are truly receiving. When you listen, you become a refuge. You become the person people seek out when they need comfort, clarity, or courage. You become the friend, the partner, the leader who makes a difference. Not by what you say, but by how you listen. But listening is not always easy. It requires patience when you want to rush. It requires humility when you want to be right. It requires courage when the truth is hard to hear. It means letting go of your need to control the conversation, to steer it toward your own agenda. It means being present, even when it's uncomfortable. Yet in these small moments of listening, trust is built, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, steady presence of someone who cares enough to listen. Over time, these moments become the foundation of relationships that last, teams that thrive, communities that heal. So the next time you find yourself in conversation, ask yourself, am I listening to reply, or am I listening to understand? Am I giving the gift of my attention, my presence, my care? Because in the end, it is not the loudest voice that is remembered, but the one that made us feel heard. There is a moment in every conversation when you are given a choice to respond from habit or to respond from the heart. Most people react. They defend, deflect, or dismiss. But the rare few, those who leave a mark, respond with understanding. They speak to the heart, not just the mind. They answer the need beneath the words, the feeling behind the facts. And in that moment, they become unforgettable. Imagine a young woman, nervous and uncertain, sitting across from her manager after making a costly mistake at work. She expects criticism, maybe even anger. But instead, her manager leans forward, looks her in the eye and says, "I know how much you care about your work. I've made mistakes too. Let's figure out how we can learn from this together." The tension in the room dissolves. Shame turns to relief. Fear turns to trust. In that moment, the manager's words do more than correct. They connect. They heal. They empower. This is the art of responding with understanding. It's the difference between being heard and being felt, between giving advice and giving hope, between correcting and connecting. When you speak to the heart, you don't just address the problem, you honor the person. You see their humanity, their struggle, their effort. You remind them that they are more than their mistakes, more than their fears, more than their worst day. Dale Carnegie wrote, "Talk to someone about themselves and they'll listen for hours." But the real magic happens when you talk to someone about their feelings, their hopes, their disappointments, their dreams. When you reflect back what you hear, not to parrot, but to validate. It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed. I can see how much this matters to you. That must have been really hard. These simple words are bridges. They turn isolation into connection, anxiety into calm, shame into courage. Think of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison and emerged without bitterness. When he finally walked free, he didn't seek revenge. He sought understanding. He listened to his former enemies, acknowledged their fears, and spoke to their hopes. He didn't ignore the pain of the past, but he refused to let it define the future. His words were not weapons. They were invitations. Invitations to heal, to forgive, to build something new. That is the power of speaking to the heart. Responding with understanding is not about agreeing with everything you hear. It's about honoring the experience of another person. It's about saying, "I see you. I hear you. Your feelings matter." It's about being curious, not judgmental, open, not defensive, compassionate, not controlling. It's about asking, "What do you need right now?" instead of "How can I fix you?" It's about offering support, not solutions, presence, not pressure. In families, this kind of response can change everything. A child comes home, defeated by a bad grade or a lost game. The easy response is to lecture, to advise, to minimize. But the transformative response is to listen, to empathize, to say, "I know you're disappointed. I'm proud of how hard you tried." In that moment, you teach resilience, not just results. You teach love, not just lessons. In friendships, responding with understanding deepens bonds. When a friend shares their struggles, Resist the urge to compare or compete. Don't rush to tell your own story. Instead, hold space for theirs. Let them know you're with them, that their pain is safe with you. Sometimes the most powerful words are the simplest "I'm here. I get it. You're not alone." In leadership, this skill is a superpower. When people feel understood, they give their best. They take risks, share ideas, admit mistakes. They trust you with their truth. And when you respond with understanding, you create a culture where people feel safe to be real, where vulnerability is not punished, but honored, where growth is not just expected, but supported. But responding with understanding requires self-awareness. It means noticing your own reactions, your impatience, your need to fix, your urge to judge, and choosing a different path. It means slowing down, breathing, and asking, what does this person need from me right now? It means being willing to sit with discomfort, to hold space for pain, to offer compassion, even when it's hard. And in those moments, you become more than a voice in the crowd. You become a source of comfort, a beacon of hope, a builder of trust. You become the person people remember, not for your brilliance, but for your kindness, not for your answers, but for your understanding, not for your power, but for your presence. Because in the end, people don't just want to be heard, they want to be understood. They want to know that their feelings matter, that their story is safe, that their heart is seen. And when you speak to the heart, you give them that gift, the gift of trust, the gift of connection, the gift of being truly known. Trust is the currency of leadership. It cannot be bought, demanded, or faked. It is earned moment by moment in the way you show up for others, especially when the world is watching, and even more so when it isn't. The leaders we remember, the ones who shaped history and changed lives, understood that trust is not a byproduct of authority, but the foundation of it. Consider Abraham Lincoln, a man who led a fractured nation through its darkest hour. He was not the loudest voice in the room, nor the most imposing. His power came from his humility, his willingness to listen, and his relentless pursuit of understanding. Lincoln filled his cabinet with rivals, men who disagreed with him, challenged him, even doubted him. Yet he listened to them all. He welcomed dissent, not as a threat, but as a gift. He knew that trust is built not by silencing opposition, but by honoring it. By making space for every voice, he forged unity from division. His leadership was not about domination, but about inclusion. Not about being right, but about doing right. Think of Eleanor Roosevelt, who redefined what it meant to be a first lady. She traveled to coal mines, tenements, and war zones, not for the cameras, but for the people. She listened to the forgotten, the marginalized, the voiceless. She wrote thousands of letters, each one a lifeline to someone who felt invisible. Her leadership was rooted in empathy, in the belief that every person deserved to be seen and heard. She did not lead from above, but from beside. She built trust by showing up, by caring, by listening. Or look to Nelson Mandela, who emerged from decades of imprisonment with a heart unbroken by bitterness. He invited his former jailers to his inauguration. He listened to the fears of those who once oppressed him. He understood that true leadership is not about revenge, but about reconciliation. Not about power, but about peace. Mandela's trustworthiness was not a product of his suffering, but of his response to it. He chose understanding over anger, dialogue over division, forgiveness over fury. In doing so, he transformed a nation. What do these leaders have in common? They understood that trust is not built in grand speeches or sweeping gestures, but in the quiet, consistent acts of respect and care. They listened more than they spoke. They admitted their mistakes. They sought counsel from those who disagreed. They put the needs of others above their own pride. They led with vulnerability, not bravado. In your own life, you may not lead a nation, but you lead every day. You lead in your family, your friendships, your workplace, your community. Every interaction is an opportunity to build or break trust. Every conversation is a chance to show that you value others, not for what they can do for you, but for who they are. Trust begins with honesty. It means telling the truth, even when it's hard. It means admitting when you don't know, when you've made a mistake, when you need help. It means keeping your promises, honoring your commitments, and showing up when it matters most. Trust is built in the moments when you choose integrity over convenience, courage over comfort, humility over ego. but trust also requires consistency. It's not enough to be trustworthy once. You must be trustworthy again and again, in big ways and small. You must be the person others can count on, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. You must be the one who listens, who cares, who stands by your word. Over time, these small acts become your reputation. They become the reason people follow you, confide in you, believe in you. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. It's about creating a culture where people feel safe to speak up, to take risks, to be themselves. It's about making every person feel seen, valued, and respected. When you lead with trust, you unlock the potential of those around you. You inspire loyalty, creativity, and courage. You become the kind of leader people want to follow, not because they have to, but because they choose to. And when you inevitably fall short, when you make mistakes, when you disappoint, when you fail, trust gives you the chance to repair, to apologize, to grow. It gives you the grace to be human and the strength to keep going. The world is hungry for leaders who can be trusted. Leaders who listen, who care, who put people first. Leaders who speak so others trust them, not just hear them. You have the power to be that leader in every conversation, every decision, every day. In a world that never stops buzzing, where every moment is interrupted by a ping, a scroll, a notification, attention has become the rarest and most precious gift you can give. We live in an age of divided focus where conversations compete with screens and relationships are diluted by distraction. Yet the deepest connections are forged not in grand gestures, but in the simple act of being fully present. Picture a father at the dinner table, his phone lighting up with messages from work. His daughter tells him about her day, her voice small, her eyes searching for his. He nods, half listening, his mind elsewhere. She grows quieter, her story unfinished, her heart a little more distant. Now imagine the same scene, but this time the father puts his phone away, looks her in the eye and listens, truly listens. In that moment, he gives her more than attention. He gives her belonging. He tells her without words, you matter more than anything else right now. That is the power of presence. Dale Carnegie wrote, "The royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things he or she treasures most." But how can you know what someone treasures if you're not truly paying attention? How can you connect if you're only half there? The truth is, most people are starving for real attention. They want to be seen, not just looked at. They want to be heard, not just listened to. They want to feel that, for a few precious moments, they are the center of your world. Attention is not just about putting away distractions. It's about showing up with your whole self. It's about listening with your eyes, your body, your heart. It's about noticing the details, the way someone's voice trembles when they talk about their dreams, the way their eyes light up when they speak of someone they love, the way their shoulders slump when they're carrying a hidden burden. It's about asking questions that go deeper, that invite someone to share more, to trust more, to open up. Think of the leaders who made you feel important. Maybe it was a teacher who remembered your name, a boss who noticed your effort, a friend who remembered your birthday. These small acts of attention are not small at all. They are the building blocks of trust, the seeds of loyalty, the foundation of love. When you give someone your full attention, you tell them, you are worth my time, you are worth my energy, you are worth my presence. But attention is not always easy. It requires discipline in a world designed to distract you. It requires intention in a culture that values busyness over being. It requires the courage to slow down, to resist the urge to multitask, to choose depth over breadth. It means saying no to the noise so you can say yes to what matters most. In the workplace, attention is the difference between a team that survives and a team that thrives. When leaders pay attention, not just to results but to people, morale soars, creativity flourishes, problems are solved before they become crises. When colleagues notice each other's struggles, celebrate each other's wins, and show up for each other in small ways, trust grows. The team becomes more than a collection of individuals. It becomes a community. In families, attention is the glue that holds relationships together. It's the bedtime story read without hurry, the dinner conversation without screens, the walk in the park without checking your phone. It's the willingness to be bored together, to be silent together, to be present together. These moments, though ordinary, become extraordinary in memory. They become the stories we tell, the love we remember, the trust we carry. Attention is also the antidote to loneliness. In a world where everyone is connected, but few feel truly seen, your presence can be a lifeline. When you give someone your undivided attention, you remind them that they are not invisible, not forgotten, not alone. You become the person they turn to when they need comfort, clarity, or courage. But attention is not just a gift to others, it is a gift to yourself. When you are fully present, you experience life more deeply. You notice beauty you would have missed. You feel gratitude you would have overlooked. You build memories that last. You become more grounded, more centered, more alive. So the next time you find yourself in conversation, ask yourself, am I truly here or am I somewhere else? Am I giving the gift of my attention or am I holding it back? Because in the end, it is not the quantity of our interactions that matters, but the quality of our presence. It is not how many people we meet, but how deeply we connect. And it is not how loudly we speak, but how fully we listen, that builds the trust we all crave. Trust is a delicate thing, hard won, easily lost, and never truly finished. It is not a trophy to be displayed, but a living bond that must be tended day after day, moment after moment. Even the strongest relationships can be shaken by a careless word, a broken promise, a moment of neglect. The truth is, trust is not built on perfection, but on humility, consistency, and the courage to repair what's been broken. Imagine a leader who has always been reliable, always kept their word, always shown up. One day, under pressure, they snap at a colleague or miss an important commitment. The room grows cold. The trust that took years to build trembles in an instant. What happens next is what truly matters. The leader could defend, deflect, or pretend nothing happened, or they could own their mistake. They could apologize, sincerely and without excuse. They could ask, how can I make this right? In that moment, humility becomes the glue that holds trust together. Dale Carnegie wrote, when you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. This is not weakness, it is strength. It is the courage to put your ego aside and put the relationship first. It is the wisdom to know that people do not expect you to be perfect. They expect you to be honest. They expect you to care enough to make amends. In fact, the willingness to admit fault and repair can deepen trust, making it stronger than before. Consistency is the quiet force that builds trust over time. It is the pattern of small, reliable actions. The daily check-in, the kept promise, the follow-through on what you said you'd do. It is showing up, not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. It is being the person others can count on, again and again, in ways that may seem invisible, but are never forgotten. Consistency is not about grand gestures. It is about the steady, unwavering presence that says, you can rely on me. But even the most consistent among us will falter. We will forget. We will fail. We will fall short. This is where the courage to repair becomes essential. Repair is not just about saying sorry. It is about listening to the hurt you caused, understanding its impact, and taking real steps to make things right. It is about asking, what do you need from me now? And being willing to do the work. Repair is the act of rebuilding the bridge, stone by stone, with patience and care. Think of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who faced criticism and setbacks throughout his presidency. He made mistakes, sometimes costly ones, but he never hid from them. He addressed the nation directly, acknowledged his errors, and shared his plan to move forward. His humility and transparency earned him the trust of millions, even in times of uncertainty and fear. People forgave his missteps because he never pretended to be infallible. He was human, and he let them see it. In families, the fragility of trust is felt most deeply. A parent's broken promise, a friend's forgotten birthday, a partner's harsh word. These wounds can linger, but so can the healing. When you apologize, when you listen, when you show that you care enough to repair, you teach those you love that trust is worth fighting for. You show them that relationships are not about never hurting each other, but about always coming back to each other. In the workplace, trust is the foundation of every successful team. When mistakes happen, and they will, the teams that thrive are the ones where people feel safe to admit fault, to ask for help, to repair, and move forward. Leaders who model humility and consistency create cultures where trust is not just a word but a way of being. Trust is also about boundaries. It is about knowing when to say no, when to protect your own well-being, when to be honest about what you can and cannot give. It is about respecting others enough to be clear, to be direct, to be real. Boundaries are not walls. They are the lines that make trust possible, that keep relationships healthy, that allow connection to flourish. And so, trust remains fragile, but it is also resilient. It can be broken, but it can also be rebuilt. It can be shaken, but it can also be strengthened. It is not the absence of mistakes that defines a relationship, but the presence of humility, consistency, and the willingness to repair. These are the qualities that turn ordinary connections into extraordinary bonds. These are the habits that make you the person others trust, not just hear. There is a quiet, almost invisible transformation that happens when you become a person others trust. It doesn't arrive with fanfare or applause. It arrives in the gentle way people open up to you, in the moments when they choose you to share their fears, their hopes, their secrets. It's in the late-night phone call from a friend who needs comfort, the colleague who seeks your advice before making a big decision, the child who confides in you about their dreams and disappointments. Trust is the invitation to someone's inner world, and it is the highest honor you can receive. When people trust you, they let down their guard. They show you the parts of themselves they hide from the world, their doubts, their insecurities, their unfinished stories. They come to you not because you have all the answers, but because you make them feel safe enough to ask the questions. You become a mirror in which they can see their own strength, a sounding board for their ideas, a sanctuary for their pain. Think of the people in your life who have earned your trust. What did they do? They listened without judgment. They kept your confidences. They showed up when it mattered, not just when it was easy. They celebrated your victories without envy and stood by you in your failures without shame. They made you feel that your story was worth telling, your feelings worth feeling, your dreams worth chasing. They became the person you turned to, not because they were perfect, but because they were present. Dale Carnegie wrote, "The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it." But the deeper truth is this: when people trust you, there are fewer arguments to win. There is less need for defense, less fear of being misunderstood. Trust creates a space where honesty can flourish, where vulnerability is not a risk but a gift, where cooperation replaces competition. In this space, relationships deepen, teams thrive, and communities grow stronger. In leadership, the rewards of trust are profound. When your team trusts you, they bring you their best ideas, their boldest questions, their honest feedback. They are not afraid to take risks, to admit mistakes, to ask for help. They know that you will not use their vulnerability against them, but will honor it, protect it, and help them grow. This is how innovation happens, not in environments of fear, but in cultures of trust. In families, trust is the foundation of love that endures. It is the reason a child runs to you after a nightmare, the reason a partner shares their worries, the reason siblings forgive and reconnect after years apart. Trust is the invisible thread that weaves families together, that turns houses into homes, that makes love last through every storm. In friendships, trust is the difference between acquaintances and soulmates. It is the reason you can sit in silence with someone and feel understood. The reason you can share your wildest dreams and your deepest fears without fear of ridicule. Trust is the soil in which true friendship grows, slowly, patiently, beautifully. But the rewards of trust are not just for others. They are for you too. When you become a person others trust, you discover a deeper sense of purpose. You find meaning in being there for others, in making a difference, in being the safe harbor in someone else's storm. You become more confident, more compassionate, more alive. You realize that your greatest influence is not in what you achieve, but in how you make others feel. Trust is the legacy you leave behind. It is the reason people remember you, the reason your words echo long after you're gone, the reason your presence lingers in the hearts of those you've touched. It is the quiet power that changes lives, one conversation at a time. And so, as you move through the world, ask yourself, am I becoming the person people turn to? Am I building trust in every interaction, every decision, every word? Because in the end, It is not the loudest voice or the brightest spotlight that matters. It is the steady, unwavering presence of someone who can be trusted. That is the person who changes lives. That is the person who is truly heard. Every day you are faced with a choice, one that is both simple and profound. Will you be the person who merely speaks, or the person who is truly trusted? Will you settle for being heard, or will you strive to be believed, to be confided in, to be followed? This choice is not made once, but over and over, in the smallest moments and the biggest crossroads. It is the sum of your intentions, your actions, your willingness to lead with empathy and soul. Empathy is not a trait you are born with or without. It is a muscle, strengthened by use, shaped by intention. It is the decision to pause before you speak, to listen before you judge, to imagine what it feels like to stand in someone else's shoes. It is the courage to ask, what is this person really feeling? And the humility to accept that you may never fully know. Empathy is the bridge between your world and theirs, the invitation to connection, the foundation of trust. But empathy alone is not enough. To be trusted, you must also act with soul, with integrity, with courage, with a deep commitment to what is right. You must be willing to speak the truth even when it is uncomfortable. You must be willing to stand up for others, even when it costs you. You must be willing to put people before pride, relationships before ego, understanding before being understood. Think of the moments in your life when someone chose to trust you. Maybe it was a friend who shared a secret, a colleague who asked for help, a child who reached for your hand. In those moments, you were given a gift, a chance to prove yourself worthy of trust. How did you respond? Did you listen with your whole heart? Did you honor their vulnerability? Did you show up, not just with words, but with presence, with action, with care? Dale Carnegie wrote, "You can close more business in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get people interested in you." This is not just a strategy for success, it is a philosophy for life. When you choose to be interested, to be present, to be real, you become the person others want to follow. You become the leader who inspires, the friend who comforts, the partner who supports, the parent who guides. Leadership is not about titles or positions. It is about the impact you have on the lives of others. It is about the way you make people feel safe, seen, valued, understood. It is about the trust you build, the hope you inspire, the courage you awaken. True leadership is not measured by how many people obey you, but by how many people believe in you, confide in you, grow because of you. And this kind of leadership is available to everyone. You do not need a corner office or a famous name. You need only the willingness to care, the discipline to listen, the courage to act. You need only the daily choice to put empathy and soul at the center of everything you do. In every conversation, you have the power to build trust or to break it. In every decision, you have the opportunity to lead with integrity or to fall back on convenience. In every relationship, you have the chance to be the person others turn to, the person who makes a difference, the person who is remembered not for what you said, but for how you made them feel. So ask yourself, what kind of leader do I want to be? What kind of friend, partner, parent, colleague? Am I willing to do the hard work of empathy, the daily discipline of presence, the courageous act of speaking with soul? Am I willing to be the person who is trusted, not just heard? Because in the end, trust is not a destination. It is a journey, a practice, a way of being. It is the legacy you leave, the impact you make, the love you give. It is the quiet power that changes everything. Long after the words have faded, long after the meetings have ended and the conversations have drifted into memory, what remains is the feeling you left behind. People may forget your advice, your cleverness, your arguments, but they will never forget how you made them feel. This is the true legacy of trust, the invisible thread that weaves through every relationship, every team, every community you touch. Think of the teachers who changed your life. Was it their lesson plans, their lectures, their authority, or was it the way they believed in you when you doubted yourself? The way they saw your potential, even when you couldn't? The way they made you feel safe to try, to fail, to grow? Their impact was not in the information they delivered, but in the confidence they inspired, the hope they planted, the trust they built, Consider the leaders who shaped history, not just with their decisions but with their presence. When Franklin D. Roosevelt spoke to a nation in crisis, he didn't just offer solutions, he offered reassurance. He made people feel that they were not alone, that their struggles mattered, that together they could endure. When Nelson Mandela walked free after decades of imprisonment, he didn't just speak of forgiveness, he embodied it. He made people feel seen, valued, and capable of change. Their words mattered, but their impact was measured in the hearts they touched. In your own life, you have this same power. Every day, in every interaction, you are writing your legacy, not with grand gestures, but with small acts of kindness, moments of presence, words of encouragement. You are building trust not just by what you say, but by how you say it, by the warmth in your voice, the sincerity in your eyes, the patience in your listening. When you make someone feel understood, you give them the courage to be themselves. When you make someone feel valued, you give them the strength to try again. When you make someone feel safe, you give them the freedom to grow. These are the gifts that last, the gifts that echo long after you are gone. Dale Carnegie wrote, "3/4 of the people you will ever meet are hungering and thirsting for sympathy. Give it to them, and they will love you. But sympathy is only the beginning. Go deeper. Offer empathy, understanding, respect. Offer your presence, your attention, your belief. Offer the kind of trust that makes people feel seen, heard, and cherished." In families, this is the difference between coexistence and connection. It's the difference between a house and a home. When you make your loved ones feel safe to share their fears, their dreams, their failures, you create a sanctuary where love can flourish. When you celebrate their victories, comfort their losses, and stand by them in every season, you build a trust that endures. In friendships, this is the difference between acquaintances and soulmates. It's the reason you can go months without speaking, then pick up right where you left off. It's the reason you can share your wildest hopes and your deepest wounds, knowing you will be met with understanding, not judgment. It's the reason you can be fully yourself without fear of rejection. In leadership, this is the difference between compliance and commitment. When people feel that you care about them, not just as workers but as human beings, they give you their best. They go the extra mile, not because they have to, but because they want to. They trust you with their ideas, their feedback, their loyalty. They follow you, not out of obligation, but out of belief. And in every corner of your life, this is the difference between being heard and being trusted, between making noise and making a difference, between passing through and leaving a mark. So as you move through your days, remember, the words you speak may be forgotten, but the feelings you inspire will remain. The trust you build will outlast every argument, every achievement, every accolade. The way you make people feel will become your legacy. The quiet, enduring power that shapes lives, changes hearts, and builds a world where trust is not the exception, but the rule. Speak so they trust you, not just hear you. Lead with empathy, act with soul, and let your presence be the gift that lingers long after you are gone. This is how you become unforgettable. This is how you change the world, one heart at a time. There will come a day when you look back on your life, not at the trophies on your shelf, not at the titles before your name, but at the faces that trusted you, the hearts that opened to you, the souls that grew because you believed in them. You will remember the quiet moments, the hand you held when words failed, the silence you honored when someone needed to be heard, the forgiveness you offered when it was hardest to give. These are the moments that matter. These are the moments that last. You have a power greater than you realize. The power to be the voice someone carries with them in their darkest hour. The power to be the memory that gives them courage when they want to give up. The power to be the reason they believe in themselves even when the world tells them not to. This is not the power of authority, or charisma, or brilliance. This is the power of trust, the power of presence, the power of a heart that listens, a soul that understands, a spirit that lifts others higher. The world is full of noise, opinions shouted, judgments hurled, attention scattered. But you can be different. You can be the calm in the storm, the steady hand in the chaos, the gentle voice that says, "I see you, I hear you, I am with you." You can be the one who listens when everyone else is talking, who forgives when others condemn, who believes when others doubt. You can be the one who speaks so people trust you, not just hear you. And when you do, You will find that your influence is limitless. You will find that your words echo in places you've never been, that your kindness ripples through lives you'll never know. You will find that the trust you build becomes a legacy, a light that outlives you, a gift that keeps giving long after you are gone. So choose today to be that person. Choose to lead with empathy, to act with integrity, to listen with your whole heart. Choose to make every conversation a safe place, every relationship a sanctuary, every word a bridge to understanding. Choose to be the voice that heals, the presence that empowers, the soul that inspires. Because in the end, the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more trust. It needs more people who speak so others feel safe, valued, and truly understood. It needs you. Go out and be that voice, be that presence, be that trust, and watch how the world changes. One heart, one conversation, one act of courage at a time.